Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Stoic with You. If you're new here, it's wonderful to have you, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back to share this journey of wisdom and self-discovery. Let me ask you something. Have you ever gone out of your way to show kindness? Holding the door for someone, staying late at work to help a colleague, or sacrificing your time for a friend, only to be met with indifference? Or worse, disrespect? That sting of unappreciation can make you wonder, am I being too kind? Am I the problem? But let me stop you right there, because the issue isn't your kindness. The problem lies in how and to whom you give it. You see, Stoic philosophy teaches us that kindness isn't a weakness. Far from it. True kindness is a reflection of inner strength and integrity. But here's the kicker. Kindness without boundaries can quickly lead to being undervalued or even taken advantage of. And today, we're diving deep into this timeless wisdom to explore how to turn your kindness into a force that commands respect instead of allowing it to diminish your self-worth. Together, we'll unpack practical Stoic strategies to balance generosity with self-respect, set healthy boundaries, and ensure that your kindness becomes your superpower, something no one can exploit. So, grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable spot, and let's figure this out together. And hey, before we dive in, do me a favor. If you find value in today's conversation, hit that like button and subscribe to Stoic with You for more insightful content. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories, your struggles, and your victories when it comes to kindness. Let's grow together as we embody the strength of Stoic wisdom in our everyday lives. All right, let's get started, because this lesson might just change the way you think about kindness forever. 1. Why your kindness works against you. Have you ever noticed that the more you give, the less people seem to appreciate it? This is a strange but all too common phenomenon. It often starts with good intentions. You help someone in need, thinking your kindness will be met with gratitude. At first, it often is. But over time, something shifts. That kindness, once celebrated, becomes expected. And when you finally say no or set a limit, you're met with disappointment, or worse, criticism. Take John's story. John is a kind-hearted neighbor who's always ready to lend a hand. When his friend forgets their keys, John skips dinner to drive across town and deliver a spare. When another neighbor's gate breaks, he puts aside his personal projects to fix it. At first, his neighbors shower him with gratitude, but as time goes on, his generosity turns into an unspoken expectation. Then one day, when John can't help because he's busy, the gratitude is replaced with complaints. You always help, why not now? John begins to feel frustrated, even resentful, and asks himself, is my kindness even appreciated? If this story feels familiar, you're not alone. We've all had moments where our kindness feels undervalued or taken for granted. Now let's pause here. Stoic philosophy offers profound insight into this dilemma. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "The soul is dyed the color of its thoughts." In this context, think about how your motivations color your kindness. Are you being kind because it aligns with your values, or because you fear rejection, seek approval, or want to please others? The former strengthens you, while the latter sets you up for disappointment. The problem isn't kindness itself. Kindness is a virtue, a reflection of your inner strength. The issue lies in kindness without boundaries. When you give endlessly, without considering your own needs or limits, it's not kindness, it's self-sacrifice. And as the Stoics remind us, living according to reason and balance is the key to a virtuous life. So here's a question for you to think about. How often do you say yes to something out of fear of disappointing others, rather than a genuine desire to help? Think about it for a moment. When you give without boundaries, you're teaching others to expect that from you. And when you finally assert yourself, they might see it as you changing or letting them down, even though you're simply setting a healthy limit. The solution? Purposeful kindness. Kindness rooted in self-awareness and self-respect. This doesn't mean you stop helping others. It means you give thoughtfully, intentionally, and in alignment with your values. Let's reimagine John. Imagine he continues to help his neighbors, but starts setting clear boundaries. He tells them, "I'm happy to help when I can, but I also need to make time for my own priorities." By doing this, he safeguards his energy, maintains his dignity, and ensures that his kindness is valued rather than exploited. Here's where I want to leave you with a final reflection. Kindness is a gift, not an obligation. When it's given freely and purposefully, it enriches both the giver and the receiver. But when it's given out of fear or habit, it drains you and creates endless expectations. So ask yourself this: is my kindness a reflection of my values, or am I giving more than I should to avoid conflict or disappointment? By answering honestly, you'll take the first step toward reclaiming your kindness as a powerful, respected virtue, and that's the essence of Stoic wisdom. 2. The fine line between kindness and pleasing everyone. Think about this for a moment. How many times have you said yes to something, not because you truly wanted to, but because you were afraid of disappointing someone? It's an uncomfortable truth, but far too often, kindness becomes tangled with the need to please everyone. And when that happens, we lose sight of our own boundaries, trading self-respect for approval. Let's take Mark as an example. Mark is a dedicated father, always putting his family first. Whenever anyone in the household needs help, he's there. He works long hours to provide, spends his evenings fixing things around the house, and uses his weekends chauffeuring his kids to their activities. At first, his family deeply appreciates his efforts. They thank him, they recognize him. But as time passes, something shifts. Mark's constant availability becomes an expectation rather than a gift. One weekend, Mark finally says no. He's exhausted and needs a break. But instead of understanding, his family complains, "You always help, why not now?" That's when Mark realizes his kindness hasn't inspired respect, it has fostered entitlement. This story resonates with so many of us. We've all had moments where we've stretched ourselves too thin, not out of genuine generosity, but because we feared the discomfort of saying no. This is where Stoic philosophy provides much-needed clarity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul is dyed the color of its thoughts." If your kindness stems from a desire to please everyone, your soul becomes burdened with dependency, on approval, on validation, on the avoidance of conflict. But when kindness is guided by wisdom and rooted in self-awareness, it transforms into an act of strength. Now here's something worth reflecting on. Do you equate kindness with sacrificing your own needs? Stoic philosophy teaches us that true kindness is not about limitless giving. Instead, it is about intentional acts, balanced by mindfulness and purpose. Being kind does not mean saying yes to every request. In fact, learning to say no is often one of the kindest things you can do, for yourself and for others. Let's go back to Mark. What if, instead of overextending himself, he had set clear boundaries early on? What if he'd said, "I'm happy to help, but I also need time to recharge. My well-being is important too." By doing this, Mark wouldn't have created a cycle of endless expectations. Instead, he would have taught his family that while his kindness is genuine, it's not infinite. This brings us to a crucial Stoic principle. Kindness is not self-sacrifice. It is a deliberate choice, made with reason and balance. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, reminds us, true happiness is found in freedom, and true freedom is found in courage. Saying no requires courage. It means facing discomfort in the moment to preserve your long-term well-being and self-respect. So here's a thought experiment for you. The next time someone asks for your help, pause and ask yourself, am I agreeing because I genuinely want to help? Or am I saying yes because I fear their disappointment or rejection? If your answer leans toward the second question, it's time to reevaluate your motivations. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential. By doing so, you're not only protecting your mental and emotional health, but also ensuring that your kindness remains valuable and sincere. Imagine Lisa, a nurse who goes above and beyond for her patients and coworkers. At first, everyone praises her dedication, but over time, her extra efforts become an expectation. When Lisa decides to take a day off to focus on her health, her absence is met with criticism. This experience teaches her that kindness without boundaries doesn't command respect. It breeds endless demands. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever felt resentment after saying yes to something you didn't want to do? That resentment is your mind's way of telling you that you've crossed your own boundary. Pay attention to that feeling. It's a sign that your kindness has drifted into the dangerous territory of people-pleasing. To close, let me leave you with this idea. Boundaries are not walls, they are frameworks. They don't isolate us from others. They teach others how to respect us. And when you practice kindness with clear boundaries, you create healthier, more meaningful relationships, ones built on mutual respect and understanding. So, think carefully the next time you're faced with a request. Your kindness is not an infinite resource, but a precious one. Use it wisely. After all, true kindness isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about living with integrity, in alignment with your values, and showing compassion, not just to others, but also to yourself. 3. Being firm without losing your true self. Imagine this. You're known for being the person who's always there. You say yes whenever someone needs help, often going out of your way to lend a hand. At first, people appreciate your generosity, but over time, something unexpected happens. Your willingness to help becomes an expectation. And when you finally stand your ground and say no, you're met with disappointment, or worse, criticism. Take Jack, for example. Jack is a father, coworker, and friend who's known for his boundless kindness. Need help moving? Jack's there with his truck. Overwhelmed at work? Jack willingly takes on extra tasks to lighten the load. At first, his efforts are met with gratitude, but over time, his constant availability becomes an unspoken expectation. Then one day, Jack says, "No, I can't. I'm exhausted." Instead of understanding, he's met with disappointment and even subtle criticism. Jack begins to wonder, am I being selfish for saying no? This scenario isn't unique to Jack. It's something many of us have faced, feeling like our kindness is being mistaken for weakness. Stoic philosophy offers profound guidance in these moments. It teaches us that true kindness doesn't mean sacrificing ourselves or suppressing our needs. Instead, it's about practicing intentional kindness, rooted in self-respect and clarity of purpose. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When Jack says no, he's not being selfish, he's exercising his power to choose. And this is a lesson we all need to learn. Saying no isn't a betrayal of kindness, it's an affirmation of your self-worth. But here's the challenge. How do you stand firm without losing the core of who you are, a kind and compassionate person? The answer lies in boundaries. Boundaries are not walls that block others out. They are frameworks that define how we interact with the world while staying true to ourselves. They allow us to give freely without feeling drained or resentful. Consider Emily, a mother who sacrifices her personal time and hobbies to meet her family's needs. She works tirelessly, putting everyone else first. Over time, her family stops noticing the effort she puts in. It becomes the norm. One day, Emily decides to dedicate one evening a week to herself, whether it's reading, practicing yoga, or simply unwinding. At first, her family resists. They're so used to her constant availability. But Emily stands firm because she realizes that if she doesn't care for herself, she'll burn out and be unable to care for others. This is where Stoicism offers its most valuable insight. Boundaries are not just about protecting yourself. They're about ensuring that your kindness remains meaningful. Seneca wisely said, "True freedom is found in courage." And it takes courage to set boundaries, especially when others push back against them. So here's a thought experiment. When was the last time you said yes to something you didn't want to do? How did it make you feel afterward? That feeling of frustration or resentment is a signal, a reminder that you've crossed your own boundary. By learning to recognize these moments, you can start reclaiming your power. Let's revisit Jack. What if, instead of always saying yes, Jack had said, "I'd love to help, but I can only do so when it doesn't overwhelm me"? This simple statement doesn't diminish his kindness. It enhances it. It shows others that his generosity comes from a place of strength, not obligation. Stoic philosophy reminds us that being firm doesn't mean losing our compassion. It means knowing where to draw the line so that we can continue to give authentically. After all, what good is kindness if it leaves us feeling depleted? True kindness, according to the Stoics, is rooted in reason and balance. As you think about your own life, ask yourself, am I saying yes to avoid conflict, or because it aligns with my values? Am I giving in a way that respects both myself and others? By setting boundaries and saying no when necessary, you're not rejecting kindness, you're redefining it. You're showing that kindness isn't submission, but a conscious choice that reflects your inner strength. Let me leave you with this reflection. Every time you say no, you're saying yes to something else: your time, your energy, your well-being. And when you protect these things, your kindness becomes an even more powerful force, one that enriches not only the lives of others, but also your own. So the next time you feel the pressure to say yes, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, am I being true to myself in this moment? Because in the end, true kindness isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about living with integrity, compassion, and strength. 4. Striking the right balance between kindness and self-worth. Let's start with a question. When was the last time you helped someone and felt your effort wasn't fully appreciated? Perhaps a favor you did became an expectation, or the person you helped came back asking for more, with no regard for your time or energy. It's in moments like these that we realize a hard truth. Kindness without self-worth is like pouring water into a broken vessel. It's unsustainable and leaves us feeling empty. Let's look at an example. A few years ago, I helped a close friend fix her car. She was going through a tough financial period and couldn't afford a mechanic. I spent my entire Saturday diagnosing the problem, sourcing parts, and repairing the car. At first, she was extremely grateful. She brought me coffee, pastries, and heartfelt thanks. But just a few weeks later, her car had another issue, and this time she didn't ask for help. She assumed I would fix it again. Her tone carried an expectation that made me feel like my kindness was no longer valued, but taken for granted. This is a situation many of us have faced. Stoic philosophy sheds light on why this happens and how to handle it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His words remind us that while we cannot control how others perceive or react to our kindness, we can control how and why we give it. True kindness is not about endlessly giving until there's nothing left for yourself. It's about giving thoughtfully and purposefully, with an understanding of your limits and a respect for your own well-being. When kindness lacks balance, it can lead to resentment for both the giver and the receiver. Let's consider Josh, a hardworking employee who's always the first to volunteer for extra assignments. At first, his coworkers admire his dedication and willingness to help. But over time, this admiration fades, and his extra efforts become an expectation. One day, Josh decides to say no to a request because he's overwhelmed. Instead of understanding, his coworkers express disappointment. This is when Josh realizes that without boundaries, his kindness has been misunderstood and undervalued. So, how do we strike the right balance? The key is to remember that kindness and self-worth are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they go hand in hand. When you respect yourself enough to set boundaries, your kindness gains value because it becomes intentional and authentic, rather than something that is expected or demanded. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, put it beautifully. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future. This applies to kindness as well. When we give freely, not because we are seeking approval or fear rejection, but because it aligns with our values, it brings genuine fulfillment. Here's something to reflect on. The next time you're asked for help, pause for a moment and ask yourself 2 simple questions. Does saying yes align with my values and priorities? Will saying yes come at the expense of my own well-being? If the answer to either of these questions gives you pause, it's a sign that you need to set a boundary, and that's okay. Boundaries are not selfish. They are a way to protect your kindness and ensure it's given meaningfully. Let's revisit my car repair story. If I could go back, I would have approached it differently. I would have told my friend, "I'm happy to help this time, but I won't always be available to do repairs. You may want to plan for a more sustainable solution in the future." That single statement would have preserved both our friendship and my peace of mind. Now, let me ask you, when you give your time, your energy, or your resources, are you doing it with the same care and intention you'd apply to something precious? Because your kindness is precious. And when it's treated that way by you and others, it enriches both your life and theirs. To wrap this up, let's remember one of Marcus Aurelius's most powerful lessons. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. By treating kindness as a conscious, balanced choice rather than a reflexive habit, you elevate its quality. So I encourage you to think about your own acts of kindness. Are they coming from a place of strength, or are they draining you? When you balance kindness with self-worth, you'll find that it not only strengthens your relationships, but also deepens your sense of fulfillment. Because true kindness isn't about pleasing everyone, it's about living in alignment with your values, honoring your worth, and giving in a way that uplifts both yourself and others. 5. Turning kindness into a source of inner strength. Kindness is often seen as a gift we give to others, but what if I told you that true kindness begins within? When practiced with intention and self-awareness, kindness doesn't just benefit the recipient, it becomes a wellspring of inner strength for the giver. However, when misunderstood, overlooked, or exploited, it can leave us feeling drained or even hurt. So, how do we transform kindness into a lasting source of power rather than a vulnerability? Imagine this scenario. You go out of your way to help a coworker finish a project. You stay late, put in extra effort, and ensure the work is flawless. Yet when the project succeeds, your coworker takes all the credit, leaving you unnoticed. The sting of betrayal is sharp, and it's tempting to think, why should I even bother being kind? Here's where Stoic philosophy offers profound guidance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This reminds us that the value of kindness isn't determined by how others react to it, but by our steadfast commitment to our principles. Kindness, when rooted in inner conviction rather than external validation, becomes an unshakable strength. Let's take a closer look. Kindness driven by the need for recognition is fragile. It crumbles when unappreciated. But kindness born from your core values and sense of self remains steady, regardless of how it's received. This is what the Stoics teach us. We cannot control how others react, but we can control our intent and mindset. Consider another example. Emily, a devoted mother, tirelessly cooks, cleans, and cares for her family. She sacrifices her hobbies and personal time, always putting everyone else first. At first, her efforts are appreciated, but over time, they become expected. One day, she decides to take one evening a week for herself. Her family resists this change, but Emily stands firm, realizing that prioritizing her own well-being makes her a stronger, happier person, and ultimately, a better caregiver. This story illustrates a powerful Stoic principle. To give freely and generously, you must first preserve your own strength. If you pour from an empty cup, you're not truly helping anyone. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. When you give from a place of inner abundance, kindness becomes an act of empowerment, not obligation. Now, let me challenge you to reflect on your own life. Ask yourself, why am I being kind? Am I giving from a place of strength, or am I seeking approval or avoiding conflict? These are not easy questions, but they are essential for transforming kindness into a source of resilience. When kindness is rooted in fear of rejection, conflict, or judgment, it becomes brittle. But when it arises from your values and a sense of purpose, it becomes unshakable, no matter how others react. Here's a practical exercise to try. The next time you perform an act of kindness, pause for a moment afterward. Reflect on why you did it. Was it because it aligned with your values and felt right, or because you were hoping for a specific reaction? This simple practice can help you align your actions with your inner principles, turning every act of kindness into a source of personal strength. Let me leave you with this powerful Stoic idea. Kindness is not submission. It's an expression of your inner freedom. As Seneca wisely observed, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. But this kindness must start with yourself. You cannot truly be kind to others if you are not kind to yourself. Imagine how your relationships in life would change if every act of kindness came from a place of confidence and clarity. Imagine giving, not because you expect something in return, but because it reflects who you are at your core. That kind of kindness is transformative. It enriches your life, builds genuine connections, and serves as a radiant example for those around you. So here's my final reflection for you. When you think of kindness, don't see it as a fragile thread that depends on others. Instead, view it as a flame within you, a light that guides your actions and strengthens your resolve, no matter the winds of ingratitude or misunderstanding. Does your kindness reflect your values? If the answer is yes, then you've discovered what the Stoics knew all along. Kindness isn't just something we give, it's who we are. And when practiced wisely, it becomes a source of strength that no one can diminish. As we come to the end of this reflection, I want to leave you with a deeply personal thought. Kindness is not just about what you give to others. It's about how you honor yourself in the process. It's not measured by how much you sacrifice, but by how intentionally and authentically you act in alignment with your values. Think about this for a moment. Every act of kindness you give is a reflection of who you are. But when that kindness is given without boundaries, it can dilute its meaning, not just for others, but for you. The Stoics remind us that true strength lies in living with integrity, and that includes balancing kindness with self-respect. So ask yourself, does my kindness lift me up as much as it helps others? If not, what changes can you make? Maybe it's setting a boundary, saying no with grace, or pausing to ensure your actions come from a place of sincerity rather than fear. These small shifts can transform your kindness into a source of resilience and strength. Personally, I've learned that saying no isn't a failure of kindness. It's a way of ensuring that when I do say yes, I can give my best. And that's what I hope you'll take away from this. Kindness is most powerful when it's given thoughtfully, when it reflects your inner strength, and when it honors both you and the person receiving it. Let's not forget Marcus Aurelius's timeless wisdom. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your kindness should be guided by this principle, a choice that empowers you and radiates authenticity. As you step back into your daily life, remember that kindness isn't a burden or an obligation. It's a gift to others, yes, but also to yourself. And when you learn to protect and nurture this gift, you'll find that it not only changes the way others see you, but also the way you see yourself. Take this as a challenge. In your next moment of kindness, pause and ask yourself, am I giving in a way that reflects my values and protects my well-being? Because when you do, your kindness becomes something no one can take advantage of. It becomes your superpower. Thank you for reflecting with me today. I hope this message stays with you, challenges you, and inspires you to approach kindness not as an obligation, but as an act of wisdom and self-respect. And remember, the world needs your kindness, thoughtful, strong, and true. Keep shining.